Hey y'all, what's up? So recently me and my friends have been playing 2XKO's Alpha Lab, which is the fighting game for League of Legends, if you're not aware of that. And I kind of wanted to come on here and give some feedback and my impressions of the game because I think there's a lot that's going on for it, but there's also a lot that they need to fix in the future. So just to be clear, like as a little disclaimer, this is an alpha of a game that's being worked on. It probably won't come out for another year. If it sounds negative, it's because I'm giving feedback. Big asterisks on that. So my background in fighting games, if you don't know, I have a whole video on this if you want to check that out, but to keep it simple, my main games are Tekken, Guilty Gear Xrd specifically, Melty Blood Actress Again. I like playing French bread games. Under Night 2 is really cool. I like Marvel vs. Capcom 3 a lot. I play a lot of older fighting games. I'm pretty used to the mechanics of that. I don't really like the direction of where modern games are going, to where it's just mainly rock, paper, scissors. So that's really my perspective. Watch the video if you want to see more of what I like to play and what my history is. But I have to preface it with that because that's my approach that I'm coming with. Also, not sure if this matters as much, but I am familiar with League. I could probably name every champion in the game, unfortunately. I still play with my friends all the time. But I understand the source material of the characters, so I can add that perspective too. Oh my god, that felt so nasty to admit. But my perception of this game before it got released in like 2018 and 2021 was that this was going to be a really easy fighting game in the vein of like Grand Blue Versus, where they were trying to get a lot of new players into it, and I was worried that it wouldn't have a lot of mechanical depth. But luckily I was wrong about that, and this game is actually on the complete opposite end of what I really like, where this is a fighting game as fighting game. Like, this is a mix of Guilty Gear, probably Xrd specifically, and Marvel vs. Capcom 3 gameplay, but it's a pretty mechanically dense fighting game compared to what we have now, like probably close to Street Fighter 6's mechanical depth and a step above like Guilty Gear Strive. I do think that this game might alienate newer players because there's so much mechanical depth that they don't really explain a lot. And I think that the system mechanics really conflict with the design philosophy of the game. Like, they have simple controls, but they also want you to understand Marvel vs. Capcom defensive mechanics. It's kind of in a position to where they're compromising a lot for both audiences while not really settling on where they want to be, if that makes sense. But I'll get into that more later. In terms of how I played this game, I pretty much exclusively played Echo and Duos mode, which I think is incredible. The Duos mode of this game needs to be like the forefront focus. I think this is the most fun I've had with a fighting game in quite some time with my friends. Because usually the way I play fighting games is I'll play with one or two friends and we'll just back-to-back rank games over and over again. We won't change anything up, but with Duos mode in this game, it was like, oh, let's try this combination of, players, and let's try this combination of system mechanics with this combination of characters. And there were so many variables to how we could play the game that it always felt fresh. This could also just be like rose-tinted glasses and like recency bias too. But I feel like with this game, as they add more characters and as more of my friends play, we'll be able to switch up the game and it'll remain fresh no matter what. So I think that this game is going to be crazy fun with a bunch of different friends, which is what they need to focus on more than anything, especially if they want to keep newer players in this game. That is the most important thing they should focus on. I think in the modern era of multiplayer gaming, and especially something that hinders fighting games for a lot of people, is that you can't really play with your friends, like a lot of friends. Every game that I think of now that's really popular lets you play with a minimum of 4 friends. You could play with probably more than that with a lot of games. But with duo mode, you could bring in that League of Legends crowd that you have, because even the way I play League of Legends, like I've been playing since 2015, I have not played that game solo in like 7 years or something like that. I never solo queue in that game. It's always 5-man or nothing with that game. If I don't have 5 people, I'm not duoing with nobody most of the time. I'm playing with all my friends, and I refuse to play that game by myself. And I feel like 2XKO will be that way for a lot of people, and it might entice them to play 1v1 games. So I feel like they should focus heavily on duo mode just because of that factor. One of my favorite things about duo mode was learning about my own strengths and weaknesses, my partner's strengths and weaknesses, and our combined strengths and weaknesses together as a team. Even though we've played these fighting games all the time for like literally years together, playing together is a completely different story, and we were so out of sync. It was like in Evangelion when Asuka and Shinji had to train together to get their mech organization up. It was literally that scene. Like, we were dropping combos, we weren't able to tag each other in, mix-ups weren't working, but as we got better and started playing together more, it just started working and everything flowed perfectly. And we both only knew pretty much one combo, but it still felt so good just doing that one combo and like mixing people up and thinking about things that we could do on the fly together. Some of the banter that we had as a group too during duo mode in this game was some of the all-timers in our friend group. Like, it was actually crazy. I need mics to be on during these tournaments when they're playing with 4 people because it's gonna be hilarious.
First, not one damn thing.
That's because I was bursting. You got comboed and died. I mashed and burst the whole time.
You can't say you can't say you mash your shit and yet it don't happen. That don't make no sense.
You should just stop getting hit.
Maybe you should start getting hit. You're the one that's one hit. You were sitting in the back the whole time.
I don't have an assist.
Bro, you were sitting in the back the whole time. Why you already lost most of your health?
Bro, can I get most of the work? Can I get a last thing? Can I get something, bro? I'm gonna tell you the truth. We gonna watch this up and then redo this whole thing, bro. I also think that playing with different people in duo mode of different skill levels was interesting too, because I have a friend who plays more modern fighting games, so he has a different skill set than me and my other friend who plays a lot of older fighting games and a lot more fighting games from like the mid 2010s. He was able to mix people up in a way that we weren't able to mix other people up, if that makes sense, just because he has a different skill set. Last thing I'll say about duos mode before we move on to characters is that I feel like it would be cool if they stole Final Fantasy XIV's mentor system in this game. So in FF14, you basically have to meet a few endgame requirements and you'll be placed into a queue and identified as a mentor to help newer players into the game. And I think that would be pretty interesting to do in this game, to where you can let them play point and just guide them through a lot of different system mechanics in this game to help newer players and incentivize old players to teach new players how to play tag games, and specifically 2XKO. Alright, so individual characters, I'm not going to talk about like all the frame data or anything like that. I'm just going to talk about like from a fundamental level, how do these characters feel and how complete do they feel. And I'll start with the most complete and then go down from there. So, Echo, the game was designed around him and it shows. I pretty much exclusively played Echo. He has so many more options in terms of movement and attack compared to everyone else, and I feel like the rest of the cast really needs a boost to catch up to him because he just feels like this game was designed around him. He's probably the first character they made. He's the perfect character for this game. Darius, he feels like a complete character. They just need to tone down the way that his mechanics work and how much damage he does, because he basically just gets one grab, builds meter, and kills you off of one hit, especially if you have I think it's double down or fury. It's actually pretty crazy. Getting caught in his mix-up, if you have no meter, it basically just feels like a checkmate, which is not fun. His armor DP should not be on a back input. He needs to be able to get punished for that. It was hard to punish that armor DP. He gets so much mileage out of that one move, so it needs to be easier to punish, and it needs to be a lot more punishing for him to use it himself. Ari, pretty much defined by her S1 and her back assist. She is pretty much just an assist character, and when you play her solo, she feels kind of clunky. I don't really know if her identity really matches what she does in the game. I feel like with her, I don't really know what kind of character she is. Like, it's really weird. You basically just fish for S1 and throw out her back assist, and I feel like she needs way more mix-ups. Like, combined with Echo, she's obviously a mix-up character, but on her own, she doesn't really have that. It's kind of weird. I feel like this character needs to be able to stand on her own a little bit more, and I feel like she needs to lean more into her League of Legends identity, because she doesn't feel like the same character as she does in League of Legends. Yasuo, he feels like a character that in theory has a lot of options, but everyone played the same when they played as Yasuo, like full screen, wind wall, full screen, you know, poke that he does, jump up, I think it was too heavy in the air, same thing over and over again, and his combo structure just looks the same. He's someone who seems like he has a lot of options and should be a freestyle character like Echo, but he ends up doing the exact same thing, and I'm not sure why from a design standpoint. Like, why do all Yasuo players play the same? It's almost like the MOBA where all Yasuo players play the same. So I don't know, maybe it is true to the original game. Braum, I didn't really see this character a lot. I feel like he's not really a memorable character to play against. He's kind of defined by 2 moves that he does, and he feels very one-dimensional. Same thing with Alawi, I didn't see her a lot. I couldn't really tell what she did. It was kind of confusing, like her tentacles would spawn randomly in my eyes, because I didn't lab against this character. If I labbed, it would make more sense. But from a first glance, like, I'm just like, what does this character even do? I don't understand what her game plan is or like what her win condition is. But overall, I think my biggest things, without getting into like way too much nerd detail, is that a lot of these characters right now just feel kind of bare bones without their assist, and a lot of the game is really defined around just waiting around for your other character's assist and then going in for a confirm, which makes the neutral really boring. I feel like that's the biggest takeaway that I have from this alpha lab, is that 2KXO's neutral is just very boring. It's pretty much defined by standing completely still or neutral jumping from full screen while throwing out your assist, while the point character spams their largest special or normal from full screen again. And this looks like different things on different characters. So Ari, it's spamming S1 at full screen. Darius, it's spamming literally any move he has and waiting for the fish attack. Yasuo's, it's his stance wind wall into that full screen attack, and Echo is just throwing out Time Winder. Like, everyone just does the same thing, and when they get a hit, it's like, got him, go in, do a full combo, and then whatever else you want to, and they just die because the damage is so high. So I feel like there's multiple ways to incentivize players to not do that, and I think it starts with movement and getting everyone up to Echo's level, like I said earlier. Like, the game's neutral could be a lot more interesting if there were more, I guess, defensive mechanics, I'd say. I think dash block is a must, because moving in this game is so scary when you can get clipped by literally anything, especially if you're playing against Darius. Like, you don't want to move against a lot of these characters, so everyone just stands full screen. So having more movement options and more defensive movement options is vital, in my opinion. Especially, like, think Marvel. Whenever you can wave dash and block out of wave dash to move forward. You can push block for free without using any meter. It's things like that. Like, being able to move on the level of Echo is what this game really needs. Because if you think about Marvel vs. Capcom, you see like 8-way dashing, air dashing, you have people teleporting across the screen, you got people super jumping, hyper jumping, which is in this game. Like, I feel like it needs to get more movement options and a lot more defensive options to be a lot more interesting and neutral. And that kind of leads me to my other point, which is the conversation around combos and like the length of combos in this game. The developers have talked about it a lot. People have been complaining about super long combos. Me personally, as I said, like as an older fighting game player, I don't think that long combos are an issue. I think it's the variety in the combos that are an issue. When you're playing this game, everyone looks the same, like all the combo structure looks the same, and it's boring to watch. But with a game like MVC3, these combos are fun to watch despite them being a little longer, because they're so unique. Like, every character interacts with the combo structure a little bit differently, and every player has a different combo route that they take, even if it's with the exact same team with the exact same assists. This game is not the case. Every Yasuo combo looks the same, every Ari combo looks the same. You're seeing the same Echo Ari setups like from Sonic Fox. That's why people have an issue with combo length in this game. And I also think that in general, just new games don't have very long combos, which is another thing too. So I think that it would serve better to orient this game around MVC2's neutral with shorter combos and a more focus on like movement options and assists, instead of MVC3's where you have really long combos and high damage. Especially since there's not a lot of characters in this game and there's not a lot of variety in what you can do with combos in this game, if that makes sense. And on the topic of developers, I really appreciate that they're taking feedback into consideration and they're very open with their audiences and things like that. Because recently, it's like you gotta wait a year for a patch to come out with fighting games. Like Street Fighter 6 took a whole year to balance their game. And if you don't balance your game frequently, it kind of dies. And that's something that worries me about League, because League has changed their balance like on a whim, just out of nowhere every week. And they completely changed the way the games play, even before like big tournaments and stuff like that. So I'm kind of worried about that carrying over to this game. It seems like they know what they're doing because it's ran by people who know fighting games and like they've been in the community for a long time. But I feel like I need them to like vet what they're listening to, especially since hive minding is like a really big issue in the fighting game community. And one person saying one thing is going to have everyone complaining about it, and that might not even be what the game needs. So I just hope that that's something that they do in the future. Lastly, I just want to talk about the presentation of the game, so things like the controls, the UI, and especially the music. We'll start with the UI. So UI, I think that they need to focus more on like when you're actually playing the game, who's on screen, and make it more distinct as to who's the point character, who's the assist character on which team. There were so many times where we were scrambling and there were 4 characters on screen and we just couldn't tell what was going on. And I don't really have that issue necessarily in games like Marvel. So that's something they could easily fix. They will fix it. And especially for new players, when you get hit by an attack or you miss a parry or get hit by an overhead, the game needs to tell you that. Like when there's something that you miss defensively, the game needs to let you know. There's so many messed up things you could do in tag fighters, and not being transparent with new players is going to alienate them because they're going to get hit by something that's guaranteed and be like, oh, well, I don't even know what to do. Like, I'm going to stop playing this game. In terms of the controls, I really miss motion inputs. I think that I got used to the controls of this game as someone who plays on stick. It was pretty No, it took me like a day to adapt, but there's a lot of weight being held on the special buttons, especially if you play Echo. Echo has like what, 6, and then you modify by 2. Echo has like 12 actions on 2 buttons because you can hold his buttons to change what they do too, and it made me forget a lot of the moves that he has. And I'm saying this as a Tekken player where 4 buttons can have like 100+ moves if you have the right combinations. I never forget the buttons that I have in Tekken, but in this game there were so many less options, but I was still getting lost in it just because there's so much going on with these 2 buttons. I wish there were motion inputs still in the game, but I could still adapt to it. It's just I wish that there were more options than what you could bind, but there's just so much that you have to have on your controller. Like you have light, medium, heavy, S1, S2. You practically need the parry and dash button. That's already like 7 buttons that you need. It also just makes a lot of setups really awkward. Like sometimes you have to call in an assist if you're playing solo with the back input, but then you need to go forward at the same time too. So like you're doing 2 conflicting cardinal directions. It's just really weird. Lastly, we could talk about the music. I feel like the music in this game is in a really weird direction. It feels like they're using the trailer music for their esports tournaments in this game, and nothing was really memorable. There were some good themes, but they weren't hitting like that. Like the character select theme, it was good, but it's not a character select screen that like hits like that. Like when you think of Melee's character select screen, you think of Tekken's character select screens, you hear one note and it's like, I'm in there. Like it needs bigger moments and bigger motifs throughout it. Like, I feel like the music direction needs to hit more in the vein of classic fighting games. I don't know if that makes me sound like an old head, but I don't even care, bro. I sound like an old head. This is Zoomer esports music. Like where are the themes? Where are the bangers at? Like bring those out. I have the same issue with like Street Fighter 6. Like Street Fighter 6, you think of the classic Street Fighter games, they have bangers. Street Fighter 6, I couldn't tell you a lot of those songs off the top of my head, but Street Fighter 6 doesn't have bangers. This game doesn't have bangers. We need the bangers back. Bring the bangers back in fighting games. But overall, I think this game's going to do pretty well no matter what happens. It's going to be a lot of fun. I feel like it's going to be a very unique entry into the fighting game history, catalog, rotation. There we go. And I'm super excited to play it in the future. I think I'm done here. Plug. I play fighting games on stream sometimes. I don't really plug it on here, but if you want to, I have my Twitch, I have my Twitter and everything. I talk about that a lot on there. And thanks for watching pretty much. I'll catch you later.